Welcome to Bonus Stage Plus. Of course, my name is Billy. You might know me from the Bonus Stage on 99.5 Play FM, and it's actually good to be back. I realize that it has been ages since we last hung out there, but I'm just happy to have the show back in some way, shape, or form. Of course, this is Bonus Stage Plus, and you're wondering, what's with the slight addition to the name? Well, we are in the magical place known as the Internet, and thus, we now have a visual element to the show, courtesy of course, a camera right here, and it does feel a bit weird and new, and I know that sounds weird coming from a guy who's also been streaming as of late, but to actually run Bonus Stage in a sort of different way is a brand new adventure for me. So I'm asking you, dear viewer, to join me on this one. And with that, of course, you're probably wondering, so what does Bonus Stage Plus entail? Well, good friends, we have news, I can finally show you trailers, and we'll be having friends dropping by every now and then. And outside of that, we also got reviews and gameplay showcases from different games we'll be featuring on the show. It's gonna be good, clean fun altogether, and I'm just glad you're here. Move on to our first story of the day, and it's been quite a weekend, especially for fans of old school Japanese role-playing games, or JRPGs, the Suikoden series in particular, because the creative staff behind the first two games, of course, Suikoden 1 and 2, I have a little story about Suikoden 2, but we'll get to that later, have banded together and formed a new studio and launched a Kickstarter campaign for a game that they've been creating called Eiyuden Chronicle, which roughly translates to Hero's Story. So it's Hero's Story Chronicle 100 Heroes, but we are going to keep the Japanese name Eiyuden Chronicle. And, of course, it's been launched late July, will be ending sometime in, of course, late August, because Kickstarter campaigns run about 30 days. But by the time you're watching this, they have blown past their $500,000 funding goal and are at about more than $2.5 million and accounting. I wouldn't be surprised that by the time you watch this, they're already at $3 million. So, with that, they've actually managed to hit goals like being able to port the game over to consoles. So expect it to be on current gen stuff, PS4, Xbox One, Switch is also a possibility, a huge possibility. Kind of deserves to be there too. And of course, maybe next gen, PS5, Xbox Series X, but it is just amazing to see that the team is back together. And guess what? They have a little help in the form of Koji Igarashi, who of course launched his very own successful Kickstarter a couple of years ago and is easily one of the most successful games on that platform to get funded. We're talking about Bloodstain, and they have him on as a consultant in order to just basically manage or help manage the project in order to basically facilitate smooth development. And this story, by the way, comes by way of IGN. Do check out the details, and it's all there. We're going to have links provided. Our next story, of course, still comes by way of Japan, but this time through Yakuza series director Toshihiro Nagoshi, who has been in the news as of late because he has been doing nothing but heaping praise on Ghost of Tsushima, which is, of course, the latest PS4 exclusive, which launched sometime in mid-July. I've been playing it myself, and it is amazing. But back to Nagoshi, who appeared on a weekly Sega Nama livestream, which, by the way, I assume is a regular web show that they run over at Sega, and he has this to say, quote-unquote, "We definitely lost to them. I think it's a game that definitely should have been made by Japanese people, but I heard they did a monstrous job collecting data and everything. It's the kind of work made by non-Japanese people that makes you feel they're even more Japanese than us. I think it's amazing. We often believe Western people would never get certain Japanese things, but the game shows this way of thinking is wrong in the first place." He also noted that the game's protagonist, Jin Sakai, is not that conventionally attractive. Of course, still looks pretty good, but considering that he's on the older side and it's kind of beaten up the first time you meet him in the game, if you tried to pitch him to a regular Japanese publisher, they probably wouldn't approve of it. And he also makes great note of that. He also says that the Kurosawa mode is really good. It changes the frame rate, puts a black and white filter over everything, and of course switches the dialogue to Japanese, which of course basically mimics the style of Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa, which I wouldn't be surprised that after playing Ghost of Tsushima, you actually try to dive into his filmography, because I kind of feel that way too. He also acknowledges the release of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice might have slightly dulled the anticipation for Ghost of Tsushima, but given how well it's doing in Japan right now, his fears were unfounded. And with that, of course, do check out the article from usgamer.net. The links will be provided in the show description. And this is high praise, especially considering that in a sort of related news story, Ghost of Tsushima is the third or fourth ever game to receive a perfect score from long-running Japanese game publication Famitsu, which is, of course, a respected outlet slash publication, or magazine, of course, they have in Japan, and it's it received a perfect 40. They have this system where, of course, you get 4 reviewers, and they give you a score on a scale of 1 to 10, and of course, it all adds up to 40 if you get a perfect score. So it is the third Western-developed game after GTA 5 and Skyrim to receive such an honor, and that is a magazine that rarely hands out perfect scores. So Ghost of Tsushima is doing something that is amazing, and we will be getting to that game later in just a bit. And our next story comes by way of Polish developer People Can Fly. Of course, these are the folks behind Painkiller, behind Bulletstorm. They're also working on something for next-gen consoles called Outriders. You might have seen trailers for it. And it's launching later this year in time for, of course, PS5 and Xbox Series X. But that happens to not be the only thing that they're working on for the next generation, because in a recent press release, they also said that they're working on an all-new title for the next wave of consoles. There's no title yet. We have no idea what kind of game it is, but Roland Lesterlin, who, of note, by the way, was also the director of Just Cause 3, says that they're excited to work on it, and they're getting help from various sister studios across Poland and the UK, and they're looking for new talent for a studio that they're also opening over in Canada. So it's basically an all-hands-on-deck approach. Now, given that the guy heading this up directed Just Cause 3, which was, before my open world fatigue, one of my favorites, alright? Will there be grappling hooks? That's not a guarantee, but will there be explosions? But given People Can Fly's track record, we can at least expect that. Now, how long will it take till we know what the game actually is? Maybe a couple months, maybe sometime into 2021, given the current circumstances. But of course, we will keep you posted on any developments on that story. And next up, how about some trailers? Our first trailer is something that you may or may not have seen, depending on how much you've been keeping up with Animal Crossing New Horizons, but Nintendo just recently released Summer Update 2. It's live by the time you watch this, and of course we're going to watch the trailer for that. In this one, they are bringing back the Dream Suite in the form of Dream Island visits, where you get to basically visit a dream version of your friends' islands, as long as you get a code from them. And they're also bringing back Luna from New Leaf, which is always a welcome addition. Always nice seeing characters from older games show up, especially, you know, hearing from my friends who've been playing this series longer than I have. I mean, New Horizons, on, you know, full disclosure, is my first Animal Crossing, and I would definitely believe that it is easily one of 2020's most important games, given the crucial time that it came out at. But enough of that, here's the trailer. the next trailer that we have on our slate for this week comes by way of Marvel's Avengers, which, would you believe it, is launching on September 4th for current-gen hardware, and that's just a little over a month away. By the way, there happens to be this long PlayStation blog post, which we'll also link you to, that details the various beta tests that they'll be holding on weekends of August, and a Fortnite collaboration. Now, this trailer focuses on the game's first post-launch hero, which happens to be Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, and I'm going to warn you right now that he looks nothing like Jeremy Renner here. And, of course, this has been pretty obvious since we first saw the first couple of trailers from this game. Even though the game takes a heavy visual influence from the MCU, don't expect the character models to, of course, look like the likenesses of the actors and actresses that you've seen in the Marvel movies, alright? I guess they wanted to do their own thing, or, of course, budget and contract restrictions. But anyway, do check out the trailers, because even if this is a drastically different looking Hawkeye that we have here, he still is pretty cool. So, September 4th, Marvel's Avengers, here's the trailer.
To any surviving Avengers, should we lose the fight ahead of us? Should everything be lost, then know this. The key to saving our future lies in the past.
Clint? Well, I guess that explains the shock arrow. And the bow. And the sea of emotions.
PlayStation. And our third trailer on this week's slate comes by way of Samurai Showdown, which is still continuing to crank out DLC. The last one they released a couple months ago, I believe, was from Ubisoft's For Honor. Of course, it was a guest character, it was Warden, and he's a heavy hitter. Do check out his gameplay on YouTube and such. But this one is another collaboration. Of course, we're getting another guest character who also happens to be free DLC. Her name is Gongsun Lee, who happens to be a magical bunny girl that surprisingly still fits within the setting of Samurai Showdown. She is from the Chinese mobile game King's Honor, which, full disclosure, I have no idea what that is, but she looks like a pretty cool character design. And yes, despite the fact that she is indeed a magical bunny girl, still fits within the game and doesn't really, stick out like a sore thumb or anything. And by the way, she is releasing pretty soon on the 6th of August. That's a few days from now, whenever you watch this, or I don't know, if you happen to watch this past her release, do let us know what you think of her gameplay. And it does remind me, I need to catch up on my Samurai Showdown DLC, because I don't have a lot of the Season 2 characters, and it's been a while since I played, so I really need to get back on that. In the meantime, of course, here's the trailer. as promised, this week's gameplay showcase is for Ghost of Tsushima, the latest game from Sucker Punch, who happen to be the developers of the Infamous series. Of course, starting all the way back on PlayStation 3, Infamous Second Son, I believe, was one of the very first PS4 games that I got to play, and thinking about it now, yes, my PS4 is over 5 years old, and it's still chugging along, and I gotta say, whatever black magic that Sucker Punch is using to make the game look this good on a launch model PS4, I gotta commend them for that, because this is easily one of 2020's best looking games, hands down. And the photo mode, we're gonna get into that later, is easily one of the best this generation. This might seem like a review, but this is more like, yes, an initial thoughts gameplay showcase, because I am somewhere halfway through the story. This is a huge game in its own right. Maybe not as big as other open world games, but in what it lacks in total land area for you to explore, it makes up for in density and just how the environment is designed. So of course, Ghost of Tsushima is set on the Isle of Tsushima during the Mongol invasion of Japan in the 13th century, and your protagonist here is a samurai by the name of Jin Sakai. We are, I believe in Act 2, so we're slowly regaining territory from the Mongols. If you do look at this map right here, this is, the first isle, Izuhara, or the first section of the island. We got 22 out of 24 areas liberated, so just a little more until this entire section is clear, but I obviously have a lot of work to do because I am still just in Act 2. If you might notice, well, I guess my webcam feed is covering up that section, but on the lower right of the screen are the main objectives. You can just go directly to those to move the story forward, or you can still just basically go around and complete side quests or side missions, and they're fun. They all still reward you with stuff that helps you progress and grow your character, just basically makes Jin a stronger combatant as the story progresses. And the fun part about this is it doesn't feel like busy work. It's all optional, and by the way that the combat is structured, you're just gonna naturally build yourself up, get enough experience to be strong enough to take on tougher challenges later in the game, even if you don't go for all the collectibles. You just earn enough experience. And with the way that the combat is also structured, yes, it's accommodating enough for newcomers or people who don't feel like they're that skilled at anything that's heavily combat-based, but there's enough in there that should also satisfy people that are looking for something that really tests their skill, because there are some elements of it that reward proper timing, positioning, and all that stuff, and of course we will be getting into that later, but we have to see what the game looks like, and you're not getting much of an idea of it just by looking at this map, but here we go. So of course, being a Sucker Punch game, they're really good with their environmental design, but you gotta admit, they really knocked it out of the park with this one. And if I could only show you like the opening hour of the game all over again, I was floored when the title finally showed up, as Jin was riding through a field of tall grass like this. So let's look at our objectives and see what else we can do. Of course, we can go to the Golden Temple and pick up a few rewards. Every now and then, the game will tell you that there's points of interest or upgrades that are available and just point you to the nearest place where you can claim them, which is always welcome, especially in a game with so much stuff to do. Just gives you a clearer sense of direction. And the good thing about this is it doesn't nag you to do it, and doesn't give you an arrow that just points straight to it. Instead, it has this thing called the Guiding Wind, which if you swipe up on your touchpad, it does this. Well, I don't have an objective marked, so it's not going to point me anywhere. Let's talk with one of the locals.
こうした戦の最中では神に助けを求めてはいかがでしょう。社は鳥居の向こうにあります。
頼みを聞き入れてくださると良いのだがな。
聞いていらっしゃるし見ていらっしゃる。鍛錬を続ければ答えてくださるでしょう。
そうだな。励むとしよう。
So, in this game, talking to NPCs, or non-playable characters, will, of course, lead you to new objectives or side missions that you can also do when you're not progressing the story. And they often lead to either pretty interesting rewards or just let you see more of the scenery, because I think that's what Sucker Punch wants you to do in this game. Just really explore the island, see everything that they built for players here. So let's talk to another one.
カッパをご存知ですか。本当にいるんですよ。
なんだと。
あの妖怪がなんと若島の集落に姿を見せたそうです。
妖怪か人か調べてみるとしよう。
I don't know if you can hear it, but yes, that is my PS4's fan. Working overtime to actually run this game. The environments, the particle effects, just everything is just pushing it to its limit. Let's get that upgrade. All right.
助かった。
Let's see where we can go next. Alright, let's liberate this settlement. We can fast travel to this point here. It acts a lot like the Far Cry series, where you see these various enemy encampments and you just clear them out in order to liberate them, and then they sort of become an extension of your base of operations. And I think I've been talking about this game long enough that yes, we need to show you what the combat system is like, because it's so much fun. Meet my horse, Nobu. So, what you can do is just hit circle on this. That's going to mark it. And since I talked about guiding wind, the wind will blow in the general direction of your objective. There's no arrows here or a compass that just points you to the exact location. You just have to follow the wind. Which is neat, and just fits in so well with the game setting. Let's speed things up. There's various wildlife, but let's not mess with that for now. We want to get to that encampment. Alright. We're close. And here it is. Of course, it can be dealt with in a number of ways. You can be stealthy about it, or just walk in and deal with every single enemy you come across. I would say I'm a mix of both. I start out stealthily, and then if everything goes south, then yeah, let's fight everyone. So, we're at the outside of the camp. We're going to try to start things stealthily, but I think we've already been spotted because I see someone running towards me already. Or I can just swim and completely avoid him. I don't think he sees me. Is he gonna try to run here? Nope. I guess not. So you can find gaps in the fences where you can just squeeze through. And not just through the front gate. And then you can basically get to higher ground. But speaking of higher ground, forget that because we've been spotted. So of course, your main weapon here is a katana. You have different stances for it, which are designed for dealing with different kinds of enemies. So let's go with the stance that's specifically for spearmen. There is a parry move here that lets you deflect attacks and then counterattack. And if you time it perfectly, you can slow down time, and that leads to more damage. Okay, that was messy. Now, of course, we've got archers to deal with. And speaking of ranged weapons, you have those too. You have a half bow and a long bow, which is, of course, for greater distances and it can fire explosive arrows. But for this, just the half bow will do. Or, do it like me. You can deflect arrows, which is a skill you can learn later on, and just run up to them and deal with them. You also have various tools at your disposal. One thing that you need to remember here is that getting surrounded can be very, very dangerous. You can easily die in a few hits. You're not invincible, by the way. So let's hit R2. That's going to slow things down. I can select a tool. Let's go for the sticky bomb. Throw that at one of the heavies and stagger him. Attacks with the red flash are unblockable, so you really got to be careful with those. Always deal with the archers early, because they can be pretty annoying later on. And then let's throw another sticky bomb. Okay, the crowd is thinning out. Remember, they can parry you too. And always remember to heal. It's getting really tense, and they can really just chase you around the camp. So you'll need to deal with them eventually. We have kunai. That can also stagger enemies. Alright. This batch has been dealt with. So you can see why the combat system is just so satisfying. And one thing I wasn't able to do here is a perfect parry, which basically means that you block at the very last moment before an enemy's weapon is about to hit you, and that slows down time. Opens them up for a counterattack and also staggers them. Later on, if you have enough skill points, you can even terrify other enemies, like make them run away from you just because you're such a good swordsman. But obviously I wasn't able to do that here, but we may just get another chance at it. Dealing with multiple enemies. There's your perfect parry. See the slowdown effect? Of course, get that camera around. Get a better view of everything. Deal with the archers. There are none right now. But always remember to change your stance depending on who you're dealing with. Okay, thinning out the numbers again. There, that's perfect parry after perfect parry. You can also finish off grounded enemies. So we're just gonna end this particular fight and then wrap things up. Of course, I'm still getting hit with the ancient Japanese equivalent of flashbangs, and they have been dealt with. Of course, this camp isn't fully free yet because there are other objectives left, which includes, by the way, defeating the rest of the enemies, reclaiming other objectives, recovering banners, and releasing falcons. So do all that, and this entire area is free. And this is just one of the few things you can do in this game. I'm not even doing a story mission, but all this side work doesn't even feel like work at all because it's just so fun to deal with. Now, what you just saw was probably one of the messier ways to deal with enemies because there is a stealthier approach, which I clearly am not doing. But you have tools like kunai, sticky bombs, and smoke bombs. I do not have the fourth option in this little section here on the lower left, but that's something you'll eventually get. You also have long-range options like bows and black powder bombs. So, as it stands, because the full review of this is coming in an episode in the near future, I really like this. It's easily one of my favorite games of the year, and my expectations for it weren't really high to begin with. I knew that Sucker Punch makes solid games, but I didn't expect it to be this good. And I haven't even shown you the photo mode yet, which... Okay, let's take a quick stroll outside. Okay, well, not that combat encounter. But if I do this, just hit right on the D-pad, this brings me into photo mode. And as you can see, you can tweak a lot of settings. It's got different color filters and such, and all you have to do is just hide the menus and hit the share button. It's that easy, and believe me, a lot of people, especially friends of mine, have been posting some breathtaking screenshots of this game. So there you have it. That's our little showcase for Ghost of Tsushima. Once again, shoutouts to our friends over at PlayStation for providing us with a copy of this pretty excellent game, so expect the full review pretty soon. That is it for Bonus Stage Plus this week, and we'll see you next time.